All right, welcome everyone. I am Rebecca Grossman, CEO for the Scottsdale Area Association of Realtors. And as we begin our fourth day together, I want to offer special thank you to those of you who have been with us since Monday.
I do represent the Canadian Real Estate Association, which is similar to NAR, but in Canada. And we have a global affiliates program where we're trying to connect you, Scottsdale Realtors, with our Canadian Realtors to increase your inbound and outbound sales. And you can find out more at koreaglobal.ca. But as I said, awesome program, made a lot of great contacts, and looking forward to this morning's speakers.
Thank you so much, Sharon. Elaine Forget from Royal Bank of Canada, RBC Bank, is also one of our marketing partners. He's not with us on the call at this moment, but we thank him very much for his support. He's been with us all week and it's a delight to get to know him. So thank you, Sharon and Elaine. Now for our guest speakers today. We have two wonderful speakers who are going to give our audience a little bit broader view of economic development and international trade in Arizona. Yesterday's session covered our local Scottsdale area, and today we will be covering the greater Phoenix metropolitan area. Our first speaker is Doug Brunky, who is the founder and CEO of the Global Chamber, helping members grow across metros and borders in 195 countries. Doug says our vision is a world where doing business across regions is as easy as doing business across the street. Doug, welcome, and can you share with us what the Global Chamber is, its purpose, and how our members can benefit?
Thank you, Rebecca. Thank you, Suzanne. Thanks, Corinne. Thanks to everybody. I think Tricia Lahane is also someone to thank as well as part of getting involved with this. So thank you all. I love speaking about global because that's really has been my career. And so when I retired, I was looking to do some fun things and thought, gee, how do I impact the world in a bigger way to help facilitate investment in exporting and importing and international trade? And so hence the Global Chamber. So for Scottsdale and for Metro Phoenix and for Arizona in general, it's kind of cool because I happen to be here. I was head of sales and marketing for a company called Phelps Dodge, now Freeport McMoran. And when I finally retired, and so that's where we have settled down in Scottsdale in particular. And so the headquarters for Global Chamber is in Scottsdale, but we have 525 chapters around the world, including 2 of them in Arizona, both Phoenix and for Tucson. So I'll talk a little bit about not just Arizona or Metro Phoenix, but more broadly. I'll kind of split up my comments in kind of reaffirming that global business is the right direction. So you're in the right place in terms of your interests and your involvements, even though the last couple of years there's been a decline in the amount of real estate investment from foreigners into the U.S. It's still in the right place, and the long-term trends I'm sure will be very positive. And then secondly, I was asked to just mention a few things about Global Chamber more specifically and how we help that whole process overall. So first of all, on the why global, why even talk about it? 96% of people live outside the U.S., so only 4% are here in the U.S. And in the next 5 years, it's forecast that 85% of business will be outside the U.S. So for those of us that have been globies and lived overseas and kind of lived that international life, we don't want anything else. And we wonder, why would anybody be so hyper focused in on a local market? It's become more and more imperative that being an American myself, realizing how important international trade is, and because of those percentages, it's more and more important. I was on a call this morning with Germany in our Berlin chapter. Germany has 52% of their GDP as exports, and the US is around 12%. So when you think about some other countries, they're doing international really well. We have not historically. We've been kind of relied on kind of the local market, and we've made a lot of progress the last 10 years, and we're certainly trying to make a dent in it. We've got to become more knowledgeable and more interactive because of the opportunity. So whether it's investment or whether it's exporting, there's plenty of opportunities. You know the market relative to investment here in the U.S. better than I do. Certainly, we all can agree that 2017 through 2016, ending March of 2017, was the peak of foreign investment on the residential side in the United States. At that time, it was $153 billion in the U.S. for that year, about 25% Chinese, number 2 Canada, 3 the UK, 4 India, and 5 Mexico in terms of by country. That's dropped precipitously over the last several years by about half. China is still number 1, but it not only has dropped, but its percentage has dropped, but they're still number 1. And a lot of that is their currency changes in terms of restrictions around currency for China. And of course, a lot of it is, all the stuff that's happened here in the United States against immigrants, and, just the overall approach by the U.S. government has been not welcoming to foreigners. And so that will be decided, I think, here in the next week in terms of what the future looks like. But I remain optimistic that we'll get back to a strategy where the U.S. is better integrated into the world because it's in our best interest. It's in our best economic interest. So you're in the right spot from a global perspective to be thinking in all of your areas around investment here in the U.S. It's a good thing. I'm old enough to remember the time when I actually lived in Japan, and at that time the GDP for Japan was increasing at a rate that some said would exceed the U.S. within about 20 years. So this was 1987. Was when I started doing international business, and there was a book called the Japan That Can Say No, and they bought Pebble Beach, and there was an anti-Japanese groundswell that happened because of the fear that they were going to take over the United States. Well, that didn't quite happen, and in fact, it reversed quite a bit. But in general, if any of you are thinking that investment in the United States by foreigners is bad, I doubt there is, but that has been a common theme. And in fact, a lot of my starting Global Chamber was a dumb comment by Barry Goldwater Jr., who said we need to keep foreigners out of Arizona because they take our jobs. He said that in a public forum. It was mainly around solar energy, but the basic idea just was so frightening and dumb, in my sense. It really got me thinking, like, there's people that think that. Really, I can't understand it, because I remembered the Pebble Beach thing, and it was like, okay, well, maybe they're going to take over our country. Like I said, it didn't quite happen, but we want that investment. We want people to feel comfortable coming here and spending money. We want all of that. And so that has been kind of an underpinning of everything that we're doing, whether it's Americans inviting investment, or it's Japanese or Chinese or Europeans. We want investment. We want cross-border trade because it increases wealth and it increases understanding across borders. So those are all good things. So Barry Goldwater Jr. was definitely wrong, but I thank him almost every day because of his ignorance at the time. He and I have had a subsequent conversation, and he says he doesn't remember it, but I don't know. It was a matter of public record, and I thank him, like I say, every day, because it involves a lot of inspiration for all of us that are part of the global tribe, especially now that we're around the world. And so that's how I'll close my comments around why Global Chamber and what are we doing and how to better facilitate what you're doing and what other people are doing to help us, build trade and build investment. So besides Barry's comment, the other thing that got me thinking was a wine and cheese event that I went to in Carlsbad, California. So imagine driving from Scottsdale to Carlsbad for a wine and cheese event with the World Trade Center, San Diego, and the intent being meet all of the greatest international people in San Diego. So I was going there with high hopes. Well, I got there and, the wine was bad, the cheese was bad, and the people were not that special. And so I spent the next day in San Diego, but I drove back to Scottsdale thinking, there's got to be a better way to connect up to people that could be clients or could be people that I need to involve with. And you guys know how that works, where if you're looking for an investor for properties in Arizona, you don't go to a wine and cheese event in Carlsbad or anywhere. It just doesn't make sense. There's better ways to do it. So I really wanted in informing, I am the founder of Global Chamber. I wanted to get away from the needle in a haystack kind of idea. I wanted to be able to have a trusted network everywhere in the world so that for those that would be interested in investing or growing internationally, we would have this safe area where there'd be mostly high ethics people, professional people, people who knew what they're doing, no dishonesty, all of that. We want that kind of world to live in, and that's really largely what we call the global tribe is all about. We've now grown Global Chamber to be over 40 million people, that are the trusted network, people that we introduce people to, and continuing to grow that through our own connections and through artificial intelligence to find people who fit the profile, and that is they're interested in international business. They're interested to grow their business across metro areas, and they're professional, they're honest, and somebody that we can trust. So the first part was getting rid of that needle in a haystack mentality. The second part of it is building that trusted network, which Global Chamber has become in Arizona and around the world. And then be business focused. We want deals. We don't want to talk about stuff. We want to get stuff done. There's plenty of activities in the world that are more theoretical and strategic, and that's all, to some degree, especially the strategic part is very important. But at the end of the day, many of us are just focused in on, let's get some stuff done. Let's improve the world. Let's do a deal. Let's get things to happen. And so we're very focused in on that, is the action orientation, and not trying, but doing. When people say, I'm going to try to do something, it's like my head explodes. It's like, you don't try. Either you do it or you don't. Let's get to it. And that's the mentality within Global Chamber. Fourth area would be that we're very proactive about business and getting things done. We don't do what was also another inspiration for me, in that you join an organization, it could be a chamber, let's say, and you write your check and you're on your own. You show up at a big lunch and you're on your own to find people. And that to me goes back to the needle in a haystack. That doesn't make sense. You want to be focused. You want to be within a sandbox where people who are involved with what you want are. And on the international side, it's a small sandbox. 1% of U.S. companies export. The amount of investment on the residential side is just a very small fraction by foreigners relative to the overall piece. And so you've got two elements. One, it's a much smaller sandbox, and number two is the people tend to be, not necessarily easy to get to. You've got to find ways to get to them because they also rely on their own trusted network. And so that's kind of that's our community, that's our people, that's our, so if somebody in Argentina is interested in investing in the US, our goal is to know who they are, so that when they ask us, well, who should I be speaking with, we can make an introduction. And so that's a key part of our business model. And then the fifth is ultimately, by doing deals and doing business and having all of this happen, people are become wealthier. That's a good thing, because that creates taxes and schools and roads and all the things that come out of that. And then, of course, or maybe not, of course, but certainly one thing that that drives me is it creates understanding. It creates, if you're dealing with a Chinese investor or a Malaysian investor or whoever it ends up being, you realize that, despite, skin color and what they might have on their head or what kind of food they eat, that fundamentally we're the same. There's certainly differences in how we approach things, and there's perceptions of what's honest and what's not. A lot of that is focused in on how they interact and what they value within their own culture. But understanding that, and once you get some understanding of that, you realize that really, quite fundamentally, we are the same. And that would be a cool thing if a lot more people understood that. So so just in summary, then, for us, it's all about helping people connect up to who they want to meet. So when someone joins the Global Chamber, the first thing we ask them is, well, who do you want to meet? What do they look like? Is it a man or a woman? Is it, what country are they from? Where are they located? What are their needs? What are some of the other characteristics of, how to define who they are, and how they act, so that we can find those people for you within our 40 million plus database. And so through that profile, we find people that are a good fit. I mentioned about both Phoenix and Tucson having a chapter, so we're active in both. We just actually added 2 commercial real estate leaders onto our Phoenix advisory board for the chapter. We haven't had one in Tucson until recently. Also, we just did add 1 commercial real estate person in Tucson, and in the past we've had a residential / commercial person on the advisory board in Tucson only. So actually, I'm thinking right now that we need to add a residential or 2 on the advisory board in Phoenix. And so if that could be of interest to you, let me know. I have a couple people already in mind who are members, but if that could be of interest, let me know. Somebody who's, strong in the area of residential cross-border in particular. Ironically, or in a fun way, the fellow in Tucson who was on the advisory board there, who was a commercial residential person, he introduced us to our Israel group. And so we're very fortunate, because that's ended up to be a very wonderful chapter for Global Chamber. And he's actually had disappeared for a year or 2, and then he just came back and rejoined Global Chamber. So we're looking to continue to support him in his next phase of his career. So that's pretty much kind of the why you want to go global. Stay, if you're interested in it, continue to stay with it. I think especially after hopefully the election goes the way it seems to be going, we'll see a big uptick in the amount of investment in the United States, because foreigners will have a greater confidence, in our ability to have a democracy, to maintain the rule of law, and also to welcome, international people and as we rejoin, if you will, the world of the democratic allies around the world. So I think what we're going to see next year is a renaissance on the investment side. Let's see, and hopefully coming out of COVID and improvements over the next year or 2, that this will be behind us within 2 years, but next year hopefully will be a renaissance relative to the investment side as well. So
Thank you.
if you have any questions, please
Yeah, we
let me know.
do, Doug. We have quite a few that came in while you were talking, and thank you very much. And I love your entrepreneurial spirit that created the Global Chamber when you saw that need, and it's very exciting. I think one of the questions was, the relationship that we have with the Global Chamber, and I know that with our Global Council, we're forming that relation as we speak. So these are awesome opportunities that our council has opened up and started to forge those relationships. So Dina, that is definitely in the work, and thank you for your question. Her question also included, and I think you kind of touched on this, how local realtors can assist with housing when you're working with international investors or companies looking to locate here. How do you make those connections with those realtors that can help with that component?
we do have some realtors that are already members of Global Chamber, and so usually we have some sensibility of where their expertise lies. Some of them are open to more broadly. Some are mainly U.S. Canada. That historically has been 10 years ago, that was it, right? Or it felt like that was kind of it. Now there's a lot more diversity in terms of what that investment looks like, and a lot more from Asia. So we'll just make the introductions. So I mean, that's kind of what we do. Most quote unquote chambers are events, and we do events. In fact, we do everything virtually. We've always done almost everything virtually. So the transition to these days where has been quite easy. But the thing we do every day, and actually the last couple hours, other than a couple meetings, I've been just making introductions for members who are looking to be connected to people. And so when we have investors that are coming in or just are interested in various things relative to the US market, whether it's in Arizona or elsewhere, we've got folks all over the world, but in the United States, and we point them into New York or into Arizona or wherever their interests lie. Arizona is not always first in mind, as many of you know, right? It's like, what's Arizona? So 10 years ago, it was really like, what in the world is Arizona? Now, Arizona, it's a top 10 city or top 10 city and state for economic development. I think Arizona was rated number 10, in terms of the top states for economic growth. And so it's certainly one of the hot ones. When you work, I'm from New York, and for many people who around, you might be from another state. There are some states that are not as doing as well as Arizona. So it's great to be part of one that is, and also to introduce people to the opportunities here, especially relative to California. I live in California and Arizona. And so, as you know, the taxation is quite a bit different, and there's some significant advantages for Arizona. So it's fun to introduce foreign companies, especially Japan, Korea, Malaysia, Indonesia, a lot of the ones that I'm very close to, into the Arizona market, because they haven't historically known it very well.
Got it. Thank you. You referenced a statistic of 85% of businesses going to be outside of the U.S. coming. Where is that business coming? Where is that the statistic coming from? I believe, Suzanne, shake your head. That's what you're trying to get at, right? Okay.
Yeah, that was one of the investment banks, and that data, that's about a year old. And so, I think with COVID, that could be all restructured. Probably nobody knows at this point, but I think it was Morgan Stanley made a prediction about, and it wasn't really actually too complicated. It was really looking at GDP for the next 5 years, and then just taking kind of a slice of where the activity is actually going to be. So it was really just a 5-year GDP forecast around the world, and where is it actually going to happen, as the relativeness of US is declining relative to China, and it looks like it's going to continue to do that for basically the foreseeable future, unless there's some different strategy or thought process around it. And so that's certainly part of that equation. But Asia is just booming. It's just amazing what's going on there. Even through the COVID period, it's been an amazing to watch the continued progress.
Thank you. So here's a good question. I like this because I always like to know, where are our members coming from, no matter what kind of a group it is. So what business sectors predominantly make up your membership for the Global Chamber? And then a tag on to that is, how are you continuing to connect even under the COVID environment?
Sure. The two different questions. So the first one is, historically, it's been, like when we started, my driver was exports. Like, we got to do exports. And then, as we went on, it's like, wow, there's so much investment going on. And, and to some extent importing. I would say importing is the weakest spot relative, but we do that as well. And one of the introductions I was just making was somebody who wants to import some things into the US and what supply chain they need to have. So that's certainly a key part of it. So we have manufacturers from that history, but healthcare, technology, services, and then just basically investors, people who are looking to invest in a variety of things. We have a hot markets segment that we do quite regularly. And we have 12 segments that we've identified as key growth segments for the future. One of which I'll just use as an example is cannabis. So 1 out of the 12 is cannabis. And it's like, well, it's a pretty big market now, but, over the next 10 to 20 years, it's going to be quite a bit of a larger market. And one of the things that limits it today is, why would you grow cannabis in Canada, right? I mean, the weather is not right for it. We only grow, I don't grow it in Canada, but somebody does. And in the future, when supply chains and legality change, which, we're on that track, it'll all be grown in the equator, right? It loves warm weather, or a lot of it will be grown there, or Arizona, who knows, with all the sunshine. And so supply chains will change. And so what we do is we didn't have a lot of members in the cannabis area, so we actually did some outreach, and we just had a presentation. I think it was a Young Global Leaders event, and one of the ladies who spoke is a cannabis expert from Arizona, and I found her through just doing a reach out saying, hey, we don't have enough members in this one of 12 growth areas, so we need to build out. So we have members in all of those areas, and by the way, a lot in real estate as well, and just basic investments in companies. But when we have a gap in terms of, we're not keeping up with the market where it's going to be in 10 or 20 years, we try to jump in. Young Global Leaders is another one that that by having young people involved with Global Chamber, we try to keep fresh as well. So those are some of the things that hopefully answer your question.
Yeah, and then if I'm going to hold off, I had about 3 more questions, but we're going to hold them off until the end. But if you could just really quickly answer the question in regards to how are you keeping your members connected during this lovely Zoom world?
Gotcha. So we do a series of, and we've always done a series of virtual ways of connecting them. So we have, for instance, a League of Extraordinaries. And so our view is the word extraordinary to us defines a lot of the characteristics of people doing international business. They're not happy with just the normal stuff. They want to do plus, which means I want to understand culture. I want to understand, and I want to work at that higher level. And once you've kind of gone there, doing the basic stuff just isn't fun as fun. And so League of Extraordinaries is a great example where we get people together and connect them, and they each share kind of what they're doing, and they become business referrals. We have a series of things like that. We have a Global Women Online Networking sessions. We did one yesterday. We have a virtual dining event by nationality. Last month was Japan, I believe, and this month actually is tonight, a virtual dining with Global Chamber at 5 p.m. It's free. You get a French meal. You go somewhere, and then you connect up with our chapters in France and around the world, and then they're all eating French food and talking about food, but also business and what are some of the opportunities that are going on. So we do almost every day. We had 8 events this week. Where we did education, but we also just get people together and talk about a particular topic. And so COVID has been, for us, it's been a blessing in the sense of, it's increased our membership dramatically, and we're growing the concept of connecting across metro areas virtually by Zoom or by phone, and where people are actually doing business. That idea that we've always had has expanded dramatically, as all of you know, right? You're all probably doing business internationally, or doing it at least by phone or by Zoom. And so we played into that quite well. And, in many ways, like I said, it has been a blessing for us, even though obviously it's been a terrible thing for the world overall.
Of course. Thank you, Doug. That's just fascinating. I always love it when people talk about how they're getting together surrounding food, because that seems to always be the connection for everyone, no matter where you live in the world. So appreciate your presentations. It's fascinating, and I think we are going to definitely stay connected more with the Global Chamber. We're going to move on to our next. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity.
Absolutely. Stick around. Hopefully we'll have time for more questions at the end.
Okay.
And I'm going to move on for our next speaker, who is Cameron Robb, who is the Senior Director of the Greater Phoenix Economic Council. She is responsible for supporting new company relocation and expansion to the region. She is focused on being a connection point for healthcare and medtech companies looking to establish their brand and scale in a robust healthcare and bioscience ecosystem. She also specializes in providing market analysis and site selection assistance for industrial clients evaluating the region to increase manufacturing and distribution operations. So welcome, Cameron. We're so excited to have you today. And can you just share with us how the Greater Phoenix metro area is doing and what you are seeing as we look ahead to the future?
Thank you so much, Rebecca. Good morning, everybody, and I appreciate that introduction. I'd be happy to share with this crowd. I actually am going to share my screen as well. So let me know if there are any, if there's anything that you can't see or if it's not working properly.
And if I could just interject 1 second, because some
Sure.
people are not familiar with the broadcast format, where if her slides do not appear large enough for you on your screen, there's a bar in the middle that you can grab and move over, which makes them larger and her a little smaller. So
that's great. It's feel like, what is it, 6-8 months in, learning new tricks of the
We're all
trade every day.
still learning. Exactly.
That's right. So, a little bit about Gpec, and I'm going to do a brief overview, and I can, fast forward through slides. So feel free to nudge me on that if there's something that's not, not helpful. But, essentially we are a public-private partnership. And so our, membership base is, formed on that 22 member community, Maricopa County, and 170 private investors in this mission driven organization. So, as Rebecca said, our mission is to attract and grow quality companies to the region and, also market our competitiveness. So that's what we do. And this is a mission driven organization in terms of our values. Every single day we meet as a team. And some of this has been a product of Zoom, and some of it are of the COVID and the remote work, and some of it was happening before. But we connect every single day as a team to make sure that we're leading from the front, to make sure that we're agile, to make sure that we're nimble, and that we can operate at the speed of business. So, when you take a look at what we've been able to achieve over the last, 3+ decades, we've got over a $20 billion capital investment impact, as well as locating over 850 new companies to the region and over 154,000 jobs. So back to that, kind of public-private partnership, what I would say is, this is the heart of how we're able to do what it is that we can do. And I'm actually proud to tell you all that we were just recognized as the top EDO in the nation. And we don't do that alone. We can't get that type of recognition without the partnerships that help us, basically stimulate the economy by bringing new jobs. So a lot of people don't realize, that the services that we provide, they're data driven. And I would say that GPAC is made up of this. We have 7 departments. We're a lean, mean team. We've got about 30 people, but there's this trifecta between business development, strategy, and marketing. So right now you can see we're able to offer apples to apples, market comparisons in terms of operating costs, connect people to key resources. So a lot of times that looks like, hey, do you have a global chamber? Do you have an advanced manufacturing institute? What's at ASU that we can get into? We're able to, connect across basically every resource in the region. And, that's very helpful to people who are looking at the market. But the labor market data, the economic impact analysis, site selection assistance. And the great news is, we saw quite a softening, obviously, in the beginning, March, April. We weren't really sure what was going to happen in our arena. And it did not take long before we saw new prospect activity coming through, hitting the roof. So I can talk to you about that in a minute. But, when people come out here for the site selection assistance, and we're working with our local broker community on the commercial real estate side, and, a lot of the national site selectors, we're able to do a really good job when people can come in and see the market. So it was very scary for us when people weren't coming to market because they weren't getting on planes or traveling or anything like that. So we've seen a lot of increased activity in people taking advantage of our services. So economically, I just kind of wanted to touch on, where we are right now. And essentially, we have much better than expected results. So we're the third lowest impact to GDP performance in the nation. So I think that's pretty remarkable. And we're at about 60% in terms of jobs recovered since mid-April. So, we're able to see that it's a zigzag, certainly up that hill. It's a bumpy ride, but I would say definitely trends are going in the right direction. And then as far as the impact, we can see what's been lost since February, and we can see, basically the hardest hit areas have been leisure and hospitality, and have been our professional business services. Anybody who, went to the last thing I did before the shutdown was go to a spring training game. And we saw what happened there. So, it really came to a dramatic halt. But I can tell you in terms of, tourism and hospitality anyway, that our hotels are back 54% as of last week. So we're already seeing increased occupancy. And of course, now we're going to have to grapple with some rising COVID cases and really figure out as a state how to manage that. So on the one hand, we're ahead, we're seeing some positive recovery. On the other hand, we know that we're at risk. So, at this point, if you take a look at kind of what's making up the largest grid in terms of our industry and our employment, it's really interesting because we have a very strong legacy base industry that started with aerospace and defense, like Honeywell, Boeing, and, post World War II, all of those Air Force bases, they started to move inland. And that's how we were able to drive, such a huge semiconductor industry. And Intel, as you know, just added $7 billion to their Fab 42 chip maker in Chandler, which also added 3,000 jobs. But our history in microelectronics and semiconductor and aerospace and defense, that's been solid for a long time. We were also known as the call center capital of the world. And, we were a construction heavy town. And a lot of that was pre-recession. So since then, since the recession, we've seen significant change to our industry makeup and to the diversity of industry that we have here. And this is very attractive to international companies, because if you take a look even at the most recent example, where we've got TSMC, which is a Taiwan semiconductor manufacturing company, they have announced $14 billion project adding over 4,000 jobs, which comes with 14 unique suppliers. And that, has the multiplier effect of having 14 other projects, coming from Asia. That is going to advance for us the next generation of semiconductor and 5G and everything else that goes along with it. But I would say, avoiding that call center capital title, now what we have is this makeup of nerve centers. And so we've, really positioned, and we've got actually a great document on it. It's a nerve center report. And it's the latest evolution of corporate shared services, because we still are getting looks for that. And really what it does is heighten the importance of Industry 4.0. And, all of the process innovation and the operational innovation that goes along with that. So, a few examples would be Infosys coming here, adding 1,000 jobs, USAA expanding 1,000 jobs, Choice Hotels, Silicon Valley Bank, each added 300 to 500 jobs. So that's, where you're going to see a lot of new makeup. Manufacturing is strong. The healthcare and biosciences, we're seeing $3 billion in new capital investment in biomedical and healthcare. So, that's where we're able to really make a pitch internationally, when we're working with the Netherlands, when we're working with UK about what's here in terms of technology, modern infrastructure, and then the healthcare ecosystem. It's really strong right now. So, oops. See if we can get this guy to move. I don't want you to be stuck on that boring slide. So if we take a look at, where we are in terms of unemployment claims, you can see, the peak of benefits paid was back in June. I mean, that was the hottest time for us in terms of people taking their pay through unemployment. And look how far down the line has gone by the end of October. So, even though we're seeing some uptick in people getting back to work and a lessening of claims being established, we're predicting that it'll be a full 6 quarters at least until we're back to recovery. And right now, if we're in that either extension of the first phase or the third phase, whatever you want to call it, we'll see where this takes us. But I think that it's pretty telling to see that we had 2 spikes and then we had 2 notable drops. So sorry. So you should be able to see now the job forecast. And just quickly, so we're a leader in employment gains, which is kind of the reverse of the last slide, right? But I think what's important to know is that we have communities here in the region that are really taking the lead in this area. So, some of our member communities are top 10 in job growth nationally. So we have 5 other communities that have made the top 25 in terms of, nationwide cities that have added the most employment gain. Gilbert happens to be ranked number 2. So, their unemployment rate was half the national average. And then also in the top 10, you've got, Peoria, Chandler, Mesa, Scottsdale, Tempe, Glendale, some of our larger cities doing really well. So, the nice thing is that we were already growing prior to COVID. And I think that, can be seen not only in the people who are moving here each day and adding to the economy. I mean, you're going to know this on the realty side, but we had 200 people and still have people moving per day to the region. So over 100,000 new people moving to the region each year. And that's going to be, a massive impact to our economic stability. As far as GPAC activity goes, you can see, how many companies we were able to locate last year. We had 42 new companies locate to the region. That was over a $4.2 billion capital investment and over 9,700 jobs with a $68,000 average salary. So this is a really exciting thing for us to consider that, the prior year we had our most ever locates at 50. So to be able to stay in that range is very meaningful for us. And again, you can see the diversity of industry. We've got finance and insurance. We've got, tech. Microsoft put that big box data center, Infosys I talked about, Nacero and Casa Grande, so and that was a $3 billion facility. So we're seeing a lot of great impact, over the last year, and then also compared to where we are now. So this is where we are as of September 30th. Everything lags a little bit in terms of our data, but we're at 130% of our goal in terms of bringing new business to the region. And I think it's notable to show that 22% of our prospects are international. So we're at 114% compared to where we were this time last year, which is pretty intriguing considering that it's a COVID year and we're ahead of where we were in the prior year. So you can already see the impact in terms of companies that have located since July, 11 companies, almost 3,000 jobs, and a decent high wage salary. So the current prospect activity, I think this is the most telling. We have over 240 active prospects in the region. And, again, we know that the percentage of international is really strong. And actually that I happen to know, just, a little inside baseball in this, because the slide is only going to go till September, but currently our prospects to date are at 80. So we've had 80 new prospects since July 1st in the middle of a pandemic. which if everything were to close within this fiscal year, that would be, over $2.5 billion worth of investment and almost 9,500 jobs. So when you take a look at where they're coming from, 24% of our prospects are coming from California. Of those, 83% are in the manufacturing space. And I like to say that the manufacturers come from our two CAs, which is California and Canada, because that's definitely where we see the most activity. And we know that Canada and China, are kind of right behind Mexico in terms of exported growth and spending and things like that. So, we've got a strong trade relationship with Mexico, strong trade relationship with Canada, and having that US MCA partnership and the Sky Bridge building out here, which is, acts as a really great attraction tool for international companies looking to, set down their company here, and then they can trade so easily with Canada and Mexico. We're getting a lot of looks at that. So that's been very exciting for us. And as far as what Gpec is doing internationally, I think that it's important to share with you that, in the past, we had somebody who served as our senior director of foreign direct investment international trade. She since moved on to the US Department of Commerce, working international trade for that giant organization for the nation, right? But now we took that as an opportunity to basically distribute leadership and distribute the model so that we could kind of decentralize it. And now all 6 of us on the business development team are managing our international relationships. So, I think it was introduced in the beginning that my focus is healthcare and bioscience development across the region. Well, we have people who are focused on, autonomous vehicles and, aerospace. We have people focused on, high tech, high growth, markets. Let's say maybe people are looking at high cost markets out of the Bay Area with those high tech companies, and we're trying to bring those over to, the Phoenix region because our operating cost is 43% less than doing business in California. So if we take a look at that as an example, now we're going to expand that and not just take a look at trying to grow business out of San Francisco, but we have an Envoy program that's going to allow each of our business development directors and VPs to work with an ambassador here in the region to select countries. So we've got Canada, Germany, Israel, the UK, Netherlands, and Sweden that our team is focusing on working with local ambassadors so that we're able to work through those trade relationships and attract companies that are trying to expand domestically to the US. So this is a new program for us. We're very excited about it. You can see that, starting with last August, with this August, what the representation has looked like with Taiwan and a lot with London based on various workshops, trying to attract tech companies, and then all of the work. Anytime you see Taiwan, just know that it has to do with that TSMC deal. And, one of the things coming up in November, actually, a few things. We're working with Global Scale Up Program out of the Netherlands. We have regular talks with EIT Health. We're working with the London industry across medical devices, fintech, e-commerce, and we're doing a lot of things in a virtual capacity. So as you may know, the Mayo Clinic has a med tech accelerator, and we're starting to bring an international cohort to that med tech accelerator to see if we can't create alliances between GPAC, our international partners, and Mayo Clinic, for example, to start an accelerator program here. So, these are just some of the things that we've been doing internationally, but I think that GPEC Global Envoy program is probably going to be, the best have the biggest impact on, foreign direct investment compared to anything else we've ever done. So the last thing that I would, remind you is that if you wanted to connect with GPEC and see what we're doing, you can find us on LinkedIn. We have a group called Greater Phoenix, Greater Together. And that's something that, we're able to announce any new business that's coming to the region. And then when that happens, you're going to see what the job counts are, the head counts, and, certainly the people who are trying to find, new places to live across the valley. So that's kind of it for GPEC in terms of a formal presentation. Sorry if it was a little wonky, but that's kind of where we are today, hyper focused on small business in the region and attracting new companies.
Well, thank you so much, Cameron. I hear you talk and Doug talk, and I feel like you guys have really exciting jobs, that there's just always things going on and people that you have to speak to and connect with across the globe. It's really very exciting. So I hope I'm right on that, right?
Never a dull moment. Yeah,
Never
I love it. I mean, listen, GPEC, the leadership, the staff, it's a group of passionate people who are really, really personally tied to the mission. I was attracted to GPEC my time before joining. I was at ASU and I was in the business of managing talent. So I worked with all of the employers who needed to hire interns, graduates, MBAs, alumni. And so I would put them, with those groups. And that's how I got to know GPEC, because GPEC was bringing in all of the new companies who needed to hire, and I had the talent. I had the supply of talent. But every time I went to a GPEC event or workshop or ambassador, series event, I loved it. It was a great energy, a great group. And I can tell you from the inside that it's just what I thought it would be. So from the outside looking in to being deep inside, it's an incredible organization.
Very cool. Well, the first question, which we had from a couple people, is, would you be willing to share your slides? Because
sure.
there's
Yeah, that's
so
no problem.
information on those slides. So that's fantastic. And we'll make sure that Corinne or Suzanne provides those to all of our participants. And thank you so much, Cameron, for that.
Sure, of course.
So I have a question. Can you tell us a little more about the new types of international workshops you're holding?
Yes.
How are you attracting businesses to these workshops?
Yes. Well, the good news is, and so part of it goes back to that GPEC Envoy program. So we have, again, international ambassadors who are here locally, and then they're working with, in some cases, companies in their respective countries. And then we're partnering together. So, usually it takes a few people. It takes a group in the country or an individual in the country. It takes somebody here at GPEC and then our ambassador, and we're able to kind of put together these programs. So for example, somebody on our team, his name is Mark Stimfig, and he's located in London and he works for GPEC. And he's putting on a series of, scale up type, digital events, UK digital events. And I think he has 4 programs, virtual workshop style. So what we would do is get a number, maybe a half a dozen local partners, maybe from the ACA, that's the state economic development organization. We could do it from the state. We'll get it from somebody from the city level. We can get business, FedEx, company representatives. It kind of depends on what the topic is, but we will coordinate in-market leaders to engage with scale-up companies from abroad to talk about what it would look like for a West Coast expansion, specifically here in Arizona. So we just completed a program on semiconductor, and we are getting ready to do a program on healthcare and bioscience. We'll be doing a next program on e-commerce, and then following up with that, we'll do one on fintech. So that's just with, the UK looking at digital scale or doing a digital program for scale up companies that want to have a US presence. So those are the types of things that we're running. And then separately, there was that November program I talked about with the global scale up program out of the Netherlands, where we're doing the same thing, taking about 10 scale up companies from that country, getting them in front of business and market leaders here in the greater Phoenix region, and helping to make connections and give the testimony for why this is a great place to establish your business.
Great. Thank you. The other question we had was, what are the predominant business sectors making up your fiscal year 21 prospect list?
So that's a great question. And, I would have to say, really, industrial is the sweetheart right now of the market, because everything happening in the office sector is so uncertain. There's been so much uncertainty. We don't know how much longer this remote model is going to continue. We don't know what's going to happen with the traditional hub and spoke models. I would say, as far as the industry makeup, again, about 60% of our projects right now are industrial. And of those, we're seeing advanced manufacturing, we're seeing some distribution, some warehouse. We're seeing a lot in the med device space, certainly in injectables, healthcare, bioscience, probably, gosh, I want to say I've got, 50 prospects of my own, and I would say probably 10 to 12% of those are just healthcare or bio related. The rest of them are all industrial manufacturing. But we're seeing some tech, because tech can go anywhere. And we're also looking at, states like California are considering incentives for their remote workers, right? If they wanted to relocate, incentivizing those workers to do so. So we're definitely watching that trend closely, but kind of back to the industry wheel where you see the makeup of industry, it's just as diverse in the current pipeline and representative of, kind of what we see already in the market. The biggest difference is that it's leaning toward manufacturing, distribution, warehouse, but semiconductor is massive, automotive is massive. You've seen that, with Nikola and Lucid and so forth. So we're seeing a ton in the autonomous vehicle industry, and a little bit in insurance, but it's very diverse. We're seeing prospects come from all industry at this point.
That's great. We have some questions about your website. It's gpec.org. And can they find statistics there as well and subscribe to newsletters? What do you have on your website?
Yes, would love that. Would love that. So it should be pretty easy to subscribe to our newsletter, and we will always show, I think we call it the Connective, but we're always going to show kind of what that snapshot is of what's in the current prospect pipeline. We're going to be able to showcase for, any of the new companies that have landed here in the region. And then also, we're a convener of the community. So one thing that we've been able to do since COVID that, I think would be great for you to get on that listserv about is, we used to have monthly, if not weekly, events at Gpec. And it's a beautiful space. It's downtown Phoenix, the 25th floor. We love to have people over. But when everything shut down, we had to pivot, which is, I know, the most overused word of 2020. And start doing these regional reports. So we've probably done 22 regional reports that, I would say average a crowd of between 300 and 500 people each time. And we're talking about, everything from education to diversity to, the office makeup to arts and culture. And so we've been able to really connect people that way. So we would love to see all of you on our regional report calls. Yes, you should be able to find all of that on our website. You could also do, I think it's gpec.org/blog. And we have a blog that will show you prior reports, recordings, recaps, things like that. We would love for you to join us.
That's great information. Thank you. It looks like we lost Doug. I'd asked him to hang on, so I'm probably gonna, oh, there he is. He's back. I do want to go ahead and just open up your mic, Doug, and we'll try to follow up some other questions. And this is really for both of you, I think. I think the people on the call and our realtors on the call are, loving the information and loving the energy that you guys bring to, making this such an opportunity spot for new businesses, innovation, all of that. But in their heads, I'm sure they're thinking, okay, how can we help match or connect those incoming businesses with the services that we provide, either in the commercial sector or the residential sector? How can those matches take place, and what processes go on within your organization for that to happen? Yeah. Doug, can you go first?
Sure. So we're in kind of a free-flowing, everyday variety of different things that we're observing. And, we are, unlike a little bit like GPEC. GPEC is primarily focused in on incoming and finding ways for that to happen. We're looking at kind of both ways and all over the world. And so because have 525 chapters and we're everywhere, we'll get stuff from wherever. So like our Hong Kong person can say, hey, I've got a Chinese investor and is looking at this and that. And so we kind of disseminate to where that needs to happen. And if I'm wearing the global chamber hat because I'm the founder CEO, but I also run 3 chapters, Phoenix, Tucson, and San Francisco. So my head is kind of around the world, but also in those 3 chapters. And so when things come across my desk, or if, let's say, it's Cincinnati and Global Chamber Cincinnati has something, we're sharing. And so it's a free flowing kind of overall kind of, whenever stuff comes in, we direct them to where they make the most sense. And I'm not sure what the science is around it, other than our goal is to be in front of everything. And so when the mayor signed the deal with Taiwan, we had been involved with Taiwan through our chapter there already. And so we were involved when the mayor was over doing the deal, over there. And we've been involved in some of these companies that are, kind of the peripheral companies as well. And so, so we just try to stay involved. And when we see stuff where they need help, or we proactively ask, well, how are you setting up and what are some of the things that you need to do? We do and we invite GPEC to this every year as well. We do an annual Welcome to Phoenix event where we have the last couple of years, the companies that have landed in Arizona. We have kind of a welcome wagon concept where it's like, okay, so now you're here, you've got your office, but what are some of the other things? And if you're expanding, who should you be talking to about office and residential and your employees and talent acquisition, and what nonprofits should you be involved with? And how, so those are some of the things that we care about and get involved with. And so we just direct it to members who, are interested in helping.
Mm-hmm.
I apologize. My phones are going off all around me. So hopefully that's not disturbing anyone. Thank you. And go ahead, Cameron.
Well, I would say, and it's great because, what Doug is talking about is, having opportunity at, for all of us to figure out how to work together. And, with GPEC, because of the nature of our public-private partnership, typically when we're working with new business that's looking for those resources that I had mentioned, we'll appeal to 170 plus investors within our network, when we're trying to help them figure out, where else they can live, what some of the amenities are across the market and throughout the region. And so we'll connect that way. So I guess at this point, it would just be nice to figure out, would it just be the Scottsdale, right? The Scottsdale Realtors Association or something like that, because that's now specific to the city. And so when we're working with the city of Scottsdale, if we have a locate going to the city of Scottsdale, then the city can connect people who are looking for, real estate in your direction. But typically GPEC as a body, when we do it at a scale that encompasses kind of the honeycomb or that network of our existing investor base.
And you also, I think, touched on Doug, and I think Cameron probably can weigh in on this as well. You talked about the cultural differences when you're, working with people from all over the world. And we do a diversity training. Do you do any kind of training that helps people such as our members understand those differences and work better with people from other countries?
Yeah, the kind of cool thing about being the global tribe is that we have those people as members for every country. So I lived in Japan and Singapore, and I speak Japanese, and I have a little bit of German, French, Polish background as well. So I myself have that from 33 years experience, but we want people who are stepping into international business not have to wait 33 years to have that capability. So we do education, we do training, we introduce people who need a deeper dive into, like there's a lady in the Bay Area, Rochelle Kopp, who has a Japan intercultural training. So we have those. We have the general stuff, we have specific things about certain countries, and we have like the next layer is, no, I really need like real training. And so usually that's companies that are like, hey, I've got this big contract that I either want or need with a Japanese firm. And so we get them to Rochelle because Rochelle's going to be able to take care of them. And I think we have 3 or 4 people that just focus in on Japan, but we surround ourselves with the talent. We do free education to the members. And then we also have the availability of having that next layer of really doing deep dives. It's so important not to make the mistakes that can derail a deal for sure.
Mm-hmm. And I think in addition to that, just providing people so that, like you said, they don't go off the rail, right? And they can stay connected and stay aware. For us, it's how do we work with business leaders in the community to make sure that we're taking action on, social justice issues. And yet we're a bipartisan, or how do you say it? Basically, we don't play with the politics, right? We nonpartisan. Sorry about that. So we're an apolitical organization. But when it comes to social justice issues, diversity, equity, inclusion, we work with our Black chamber, our Hispanic chamber. We're working with business leaders throughout the region to come together and figure out, is there some type of a pledge? Is there some type of a program? Is there some type of, thing we can do to ensure that there is equity across organizations and that training is taking place? And, we've worked with the Diversity Leadership Alliance group, and, we have very good relationships with people who educate our group on how to be leaders in that space. And then, we feel like there's a responsibility at Gpec to make sure that that message is going further and further out into the community, because the most important thing for us to do is make sure that everybody is singing from the same song sheet, and that we all share, core competencies, and that we all share this general, understanding, and that we can generate awareness across these issues so that we're connected in this way. Because what we don't want to see is a siloed system or a broken, community feel. And one of the things that our locates, we call them locates, new companies to the region, they remark on is that this place is so easy to enter into. It's friendly, it's arms open. We have a pro-business governor, but really on the more internal side of doing business, they're able to connect to the community quickly. And we've got a lot of diversity here. So we're constantly finding ways to, celebrate that, tell those stories. We have a huge marketing piece on our website that is dedicated just to, how some of our minority-owned businesses are doing and so forth. So we try to look at it from a broader perspective, with the messaging, with the branding of the region, and with the connectivity among our business leaders and all of our partners.
Yeah, and I'll second that, because a lot of the global chamber programming that we now do around the world came out of Phoenix. So we do a Women in Global Leadership event. It's the 5th anniversary of it. We've been doing it with Squire Patton Boggs. We just did one with Mayor Gallego. It was Nicola, the head of their global business development. We always have a man on the panel, so because men need to be part of that conversation, or at least that's our belief. And so we had Sanjeev Kagram, who's the dean of Thunderbird School of Global Management, and a couple other women leaders. And we now are doing that event in San Francisco and in Miami and across the world. So that kind of sensibility, I think, really is important, not just in Phoenix and in Tucson, but around the world. And it's an important part of as these companies come in. I always remember the story of Henkel deciding to leave Scottsdale because the German guy who was the president felt isolated. He felt like nobody was listening to him, or I don't understand what happened exactly, but the general sense was there was a miscommunication that happened, and lo and behold, they made a decision that is not a good decision for the region. But those are the important things of why we started Welcome to Phoenix. Is it's more than just the building, but there's all of the things you guys do with properties and employees being happy and making sure they have the right employees and the environment overall, including, if he wanted to talk to the mayor, we should have known that, as a community. And so to make them happy and pleased and continuing to grow and invest in the region. And so GPAC is involved in that, and we are too, and we collaborate with GPAC all the time.
So I'm going to ask, I love your thank you in 14 different languages or whatever that is up there. That's really cool, Doug. Thank you for that. Hopefully I love
you should
that.
see my keyboard to be able to do that.
But everybody should be using that. That's wonderful. So just one of the questions I kind of always am wondering is, when you're talking to people who are coming from other areas or coming from other parts of the world, are you satisfied with the statistical information on the availability of housing, or is that a frustration for you about how, I think I saw the average salary on one of your slides, Cameron, was $67,500. That's a not, I mean, that's going to be difficult to find housing. How many times do you hear pushback on that?
Well, it's interesting because we haven't actually heard pushback on that. And I think it's because it all depends, right? Like what we're seeing is a lot more multifamily being built out. We know that we are a high cost market for real estate right now. But I think because we've been able to move away from, again, those just call center jobs, and now we're bringing R&D, we're bringing engineering, we're bringing advanced manufacturing. So when you bring higher level jobs, it's going to correlate with higher level salary. And so with that, I still think if you compare to some of the markets that we compete with, the Carolinas, Atlanta, Bay Area, Southern California, we're still a lower cost. Seattle, right? We compete a lot with those places. So against our competitors, we're still more affordable. But, right now, yes, what we have is an issue with the gap, that middle class gap that's widening. So we're paying very close attention to that because there is a lot of risk there. But as far as receiving pushback, not quite. And I think that's because we have so many varied levels of housing available, so everything from, all the way in North Scottsdale, where you're going to see the beautiful kind of executive style housing, down to a more urban, what we call urban suburban development down closer toward downtown Phoenix, right? So there are a lot of options. And then, I think that paired with an increase in high wage salary or even average salary, there's, definitely a way forward for people to have housing.
That's great.
And by the way, in 15 minutes, we're actually doing a GPEC regional report on housing affordability.
Love that. Doug, can you quickly add to that? And then if both of you could tell us, are there any other events that are coming up soon that our members could take advantage of?
Yeah, I think the data seems to be available. The real thing that we see is, a more of a macro understanding of where to live and how to interact, especially now with COVID and how the dynamics from your office standpoint are, somebody who can really give them the kind of information of really where to live. I've seen too many people make mistakes in terms of maybe locating in a wrong area relative to where they really need to be based on their own business. And so I think it's the expertise of a professional to be able to really understand what are they trying to do as they land, and then give them advice. I mean, I I came to Arizona 15 years ago, 17 years ago, something like that. And it took me like a year to really understand the dynamics of like, where should you live? And my wife wanted to live far north Scottsdale because of colder weather. And we ended up there, and I was working in downtown Phoenix. You know, believe me, driving down the 51 for years was not my idea of panacea. I really would have probably done something different if knowing then what I know now. So it's that basic professional guidance to listen and to guide is really what most of the people coming in need.
Thank you. Any events coming up that you want to talk about, or in the next couple of weeks, any events that our people can take advantage of?
It sounds like Cameron has one in 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Well, if we hurry, we can free up our people for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For us, we have the annual Grow Globally Fair. So it's all of the people doing international business all together one time per year. It's December 3rd. It's in the afternoon, and it will be virtual, just like everything else almost we've done. The last event we did live was the International State of the Metro, which we had this year. Scottsdale led that and also did that in person with the mayor, et cetera. And we do that annually as well. We're planning that for the first quarter. But the Grow Globally Fair is getting all the people doing international business together. Gpec typically has a table, and that's December 3rd. And we welcome 3:30 to 5, I believe it is that day, Arizona time, and we'll have people from around the world and local people. So check that out on the Global Chamber website. We're at globalchamber.org.
Great. And it looks like you put a link in the chat there, Cameron.
I did. So I put a link to the regional report, just so you can kind of see where that is coming from. And then we also have, you know, once you get into that, you can kind of see links to prior events and things like that. Or, you know, you could connect with Bethany Bennick on our team. She helps to manage all of our regional reports and all of our ambassador events. The next one that will be taking place for us will be on election outcomes for our ambassador event. Next week's going to be a big week. We all got to just hold on tight and see what happens.
Wow. Well, great. You guys are just wonderful. There were several posts saying how much they loved both of you. One in particular,
Thank you so much,
from Trisha. She's obviously a big fan of both of you. So we just really thank you for being here today and appreciate all you do for our wonderful area here. So thank you.
Thanks for your support. Thanks for the opportunity.
So now we're going to take some time and transition over to our property tour portion of our trade mission. We have a couple of listings which highlight the character and in-demand designs, which are indicative of the Scottsdale Greater Phoenix metropolitan area. Today we have two different properties our Global Council chose to highlight. Our first property is a 3-bedroom residence at Optima Kierland. Optima is one of the newer multifamily offerings, which is located just off the 101 in the Kierland area. And if you haven't been there, you should take the time to go over. It's absolutely gorgeous. Wow, that was lovely. If you haven't gone there in person, the views are spectacular. Our second property is a single family residential listing Encore at Greyhawk, located in North Scottsdale, up where Doug lives.
Hi, this is Sean Shackleton with the Shackleton Group at Platinum Living Realty. Today I want to welcome you to my newest listing, the Encore at Greyhawk. This is a gated townhome community within the perfect location in Greyhawk. Come with me, let's take a look. This home has all the designer features that you would be looking for in a full custom home. Single level, 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, beautiful. Perfect for anybody looking to downsize, use as a second home, or just minimize their lifestyle. The location of this townhome is perfect within the community. Situated right next to the pool, gives beautiful views and sunsets. Conveniently located on the end for added privacy, this home is also just steps away from walking paths. Thanks for joining me on this tour of this beautiful home. If you've got any questions about this home, please feel free to reach out to me. I'm Sean Shackleton with the Shackleton Group, helping clients one relationship at a time.
Thanks, Corinne, for playing the videos. And I think that concludes our session today. I want to thank all of our marketing partners again, Korea Global and RBC Bank. We appreciate all your support in making this event possible. For our attendees, please join us tomorrow at 8:30 a.m. for the final day of our global adventure. And I know that we'll have our president of the Scottsdale Area Association, Cindy Reddy, present for that morning. And so we look forward to seeing her. And for our attendees, I just thank you for being on today. Please come back in the morning. We have an outstanding group of speakers tomorrow, including Sharon von Schoenberg with Korea, Elaine Forget with RBC will be back, our friend Glenn Williamson with the Canadian Arizona Business Association, and Pauline Auger, who chairs the Korea Global Committee, will share with us the secrets of successful transactions with Canadian customers. And I know you're all going to be interested in that. So we'll see you then, and thank you for being here today.